Warning, this video contains spoilers. Viewer discretion is advised. Good evening everyone, and welcome to Enclave Culture, your haven for all things culture. In this video, I'll be reviewing the long-awaited sequel to Dune 2021, Dune Part Two, 2024, directed and written by Denis Villeneuve, with a screenplay adapted from the sci-fi epic novel Dune 1965. Written by Frank Herbert. It stars Timontheè Chalamat, Zendaya, Butler, and others. As usual with these videos, I'll be diving into the themes of the story. This is a near masterpiece that moviegoers have been waiting 3 years to see, and it was more than worth the wait. Please enjoy the video. Dune Part 2 continues right after the ending of the first film, where Paul Atreides and his mother, Lady Jessica, meet the Fremen. Paul has become just as much of a part of the Fremen as he has with Arrakis. Paul seeks vengeance against Baron Harkonnen for the death of his father, Leto Atreides. Paul must choose between the love of his life or his destiny to become a prophetic messiah and lead the Fremen in a rebellion to overthrow the oppressive House Harkonnen from Arrakis, all while trying to prevent a nightmare from coming true. This film is a much more action-packed blockbuster compared to the first, and it moves at an even faster pace, but it's still fantastic. One of the film's earliest scenes showcases Princess Irulan recording an audio journal in her quarters on the idyllic planet Corino. Her speech acts as a narrative device that is interspersed with shots of Harkonnen flame troopers incinerating their enemies. However, back on Arrakis, Paul's skills have greatly improved since his training with Chani, Stilgar, and the rest of the Fremen. They hunt in war parties together. Paul has adapted to living on Arrakis. He has become one with the desert. Paul's relationship with Chani also begins to intensify. Paul declares his love to Chani and that everything he is doing is for her, that he will never stop loving her. Stilgar, on the other hand, does not respect Paul right away. But after Paul murders several members of House Harkonnen, he eats his words. When Paul is about to ride the worm, Stilgar tells Paul,
"Don't try to impress anyone."
But Stilgar was unaware of the telepathic abilities and willpower that Paul possesses. Spice has enhanced his Bene Gesserit abilities that he inherited from his mother. Paul stuns Stilgar when he rides the legendary giant sandworm that is supposed to be untamable. Chani and Stilgar are stunned at this incredible achievement. They realize that Paul is the Lisan al-Gaib, the one who will liberate Arrakis. They have found their warrior, and he has found his higher purpose. But of course, Paul keeps having terrible nightmares about the Butlerian Jihad, where Paul and his Fremen rebellion commit genocide and wipe out billions of life forms in the galaxy.
Millions of people starving to death because of me.
If only he could prevent it from happening, but not even the Messiah could. Before I discuss more of the story and its themes, I need to talk about the actors of this film. Performances here are absolutely fantastic. They all managed to elevate this top-tier material to new heights. Timontheè Chalamat, Zendaya, Javier Bardem, Josh Brolin, Stellan Skarsgård, and Dave Bautista each provide their own styles to play their respective characters. Chalamat's Paul Atreides is brave, powerful, honorable, and a natural-born, charismatic leader. Zendaya's Chani is an empathetic, strong woman who balances out Paul's gigantic ambitions with compassion and tenderness. Florence Pugh, Butler, Christopher Walken, and Anya Taylor-Joy are the new characters who work very well and naturally fit into the film as the story reaches its monumental conclusion. Lady Jessica, played by Rebecca Ferguson, had a role that was a lot more in the background compared to her dynamic role in the first film. This does not mean that she was less impactful. though. Her Bene Gesserit powers enabled her to become a high priestess within the religious Fremen groups. Perhaps her most important role in this film is her pregnancy. The Bene Gesserit order exposed her daughter Aaliyah to the water of life when she was still in the womb, who would hold incredible powers. Baron Vladimir Harkonnen is one of the most grotesque robber barons ever brought to screen. Skarsgård imbues the character with a lot of menace. Hats off to the makeup department for an incredible job with his makeup. He represents greed and gluttony. Almost all of House Harkonnen is the epitome of ruthlessness, cruelty, avarice, and who else could spearhead that empire of destruction other than the Baron?
Your orders were to restore Spice production to full capacity.
And the Lord stated that Baron Harkonnen's morbid obesity was not just the result of overeating, but a genetic curse that the Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Moniam planted in him for revenge when he raped her after she blackmailed him. His nephew, Fade Rotha, played by Austin Butler, who is best known for playing Elvis Presley in Elvis 2022, completely transforms into the villain. I read an article that said that Elvis has left the building, and I couldn't concur more. Fade is a cunning psychopath who acts as a foil to Paul Atreides. Where Paul is honorable, well-meaning, and loving, Rotha is malevolent and amoral. The character had a brilliant introduction that makes the audience understand Rotha's personality and motivation. As soon as he tries his new blade, he slits the throat of one of his female acquaintances just to test out the blade's capabilities. In the arena scene, Fade demonstrates his furiousness as he attacks 3 surviving soldiers from House Atreides. His fighting style, his terrifying appearance, and brutality make him a perfect match for Paul. Part of the arena scene where Fade takes off his shield and throws it on the sandy ground demonstrates his nihilistic philosophy. When his opponent almost gets the better of him, Fade can care less. The actor definitely felt intimidated by Chalamat and Zendaya's performances, as they are playing the most iconic characters in the entire story, so he made sure to do everything he could to steal every scene he's in. An underrated scene featuring Fade was with the Bene Gesserit agent Margot Fenring. Lea Seydoux was not given much material to work with, but she excelled with what little she had. Fenring proved that Fade was sexually vulnerable and could be potentially controlled by the Bene Gesserit. Fade's weakness against women proved that he was not completely apathetic to life.
I dreamed about you last night.
A pleasant dream, I hope.
Don't mock me.
It was a great choice to allow Javier to use his Spanish accent for his portrayal of Stilgar. All proved to him that he was the Lisan al-Gaib the Fremen prayed for. Their relationship is similar to Paul's relationship with Gurney from House Atreides, except with a religious angle. This is someone who truly believes he is fighting for a god. Right when Paul Atreides and his family arrived in Arrakis, he was one with Chani, and he didn't even know about it. It was a sign signifying Paul's destiny. Paul and her relationship was so strong. To Paul, she was the manifestation of Arrakis, an inhospitable desert biome, but one with heart and soul. She was that soul to him. All Paul ever wanted to do was make Chani happy.
What we do for the benefit of all.
Well, I'd very much like to be equal to you.
Princess Arulin and Emperor Shaddam IV were an intriguing addition to the story. They helped set up Planet Carino, which is inspired by Italian culture and the Roman Empire. Florence Pugh brings an elegance and intelligence to the character that makes her memorable. She possesses a royal beauty that makes her stand out from the other women in the film, even Lady Jessica. She does not have as much screen time as Zendaya, but her role is one of the most important. I look forward to seeing Florence play a more villainous Arulin in the next film. Christopher Walken is a legend, starred in so many movies, hard to keep count. He does not even have to try with his performance here. He's pretty much the same in almost all of his roles, but he's always awesome to watch. Emperor Shaddam conspired alongside Baron Harkonnen to destroy House Atreides. The two powers perceived the Atreides as opponents to their rule over Arrakis. They wanted exclusive access to the spice melange for themselves. Josh Brolin as Gurney is a good character. Like Duncan Idaho, he's the embodiment of loyalty and honor. While his role was minor, he does an excellent job with what he was given. There are some great scenes with him, like when he was playing Balicet, when he reunites with Paul after the tragedy that occurred in the first film. Gurney's best scene is when he murders the Baron's nephew, Glossu Raban, played by Dave Bautista.
For my Duke and my friends.
This scene was very personal, and you could feel the animosity between the two. Very well played, for sure. This movie tackles themes like the price of godhood, the oppressed battling their oppressors, sacrifice, environmentalism, and galactic politics. When Paul drank the water of life, it amplified his powers to such extremes he could see past, present, future. The entire film, Paul's goal is unchanged. The nightmares of the Butlerian jihad horrify him, but he always wanted Arrakis to be a better place, free to forge its own destiny and not be exploited by foreign powers. Chani was so excited about the prophecy being fulfilled, but when she began to hear of Paul's nightmares, she started to conjecture that maybe the prophecy was wrong.
You did this to him. You did this to your own son. You do it. Fix it yourself.
This represents man's distrust in prophecies and dislike of the concept of destiny. Big debate over this movie and the story of Dune in general is whether Paul is a savior or not. The truth is that Paul is a savior because he greatly desired to make a green paradise. But the universe had other plans. Atreides possesses expanded telepathy, cognition, and foresight, but regardless, he was a slave to the greater prophecy. Dune was always a story, not just about colonialism, but a warning about the dangers of environmental destruction. Frank Herbert's magnum opus is more relevant than ever before. It shows how precious the planet's biosphere is, how we take simple pleasures like water or rain for granted. Every character in Dune is a reflection of us, of what we could be if we were an interstellar society. The planet and its condition determines how we live our lives. It took Frank Herbert 23 times to get this story published. That's insane, isn't it? I know if my work was rejected that many times, I would go berserk. It's also based on the true story of Lawrence of Arabia, a British archaeologist who ended up becoming a revolutionary who joined the Arab revolt against the Ottoman Empire in 1917. He ended up becoming a legendary hero amongst the Arab world forever. Paul Atreides and the Fremen are literary interpretations of Lawrence of Arabia and the native revolutionaries. House Harkonnen are equivalents to the Ottoman Empire. Paul sacrificed his love for Chani, marries Princess Lurlin, and becomes Emperor of the known universe. The successful overthrow of House Harkonnen inspired numerous other Fremen to overthrow their oppressors all over the galaxy, which initiated the Golden Path, which Paul envisions as the only path to bring everlasting peace to the universe. This genocide occurs 12 years after the events of the first Dune book, in Paul's later years as Emperor.
It's been a while since you've had one of those nightmares.
Paul's duel with Fade Rotha is the climax of the film. Fight choreography was breathtaking to witness. While they fight, you can distinguish between the difference between the two combatants' fighting styles. When Fade stabbed Paul, it heightened the duel's intensity. However, when Paul got the upper hand and stabbed Fade, destiny had chosen its champion. Dialogue in this scene is quite different compared to the book. In fact, David Lynch's Dune 1984 duel scene is essentially a recreation of the book, which is funny considering how the rest of Lynch's movie is so distinct from the novel. Here's a quote regarding this matter taken directly from the book. "You see there on my hip, Feyd-Rautha whispered. "Your death, fool," and he began twisting himself around, forcing the poisoned needle closer and closer. "It'll stop your muscles, and my knife will finish. There'll never be a trace left to detect." Herbert, page 317. But I liked Feyd's final words compared to the book because it establishes the villain's surprise that Paul defeated him, and also his admiration of Paul for besting him.
You fought well, Atreides.
Aside from the powerful themes of Dune, the technological and cinematographic elements are brilliant. Dune Part 1 had one of the most stunning marriages of practical effects and CGI ever brought to the screen, and this movie is no exception. It takes everything that was visually exciting in the first and amps it up for the sequel. The costume and technological designs are spectacular and even superior to how they were in the first movie. They really allow the viewer to believe that this world is a tangible, real place. I really like the usage of the Fremen language. It's amazing how the linguistic team helped to bring this language to life. The Fremen tongue is inspired by Arabic. Fremen are descendants of Arabs on Earth. That explains how they came to exist. I have not felt so immersed in the picture in a long time. This movie adapts arguably the best part of the novel, but I must admit that this film is no masterpiece. I am no expert of the Dune universe, but this film has some glaring issues, which I will now address. Biggest problem with this movie is the ending. Paul marrying Irulan, choosing to not make Chani concubine, was a major mistake. Chani being heartbroken by Paul's choice and going out on her own just does not work. It was cool that she was about to ride a sandworm. That doesn't make the ending any better. I know that Denis wanted to make Paul's ascension to the throne more tragic as he loses the love of his life, pursue his destiny. But that is just an improper interpretation of Herbert's work. Paul and Chani's destinies are interlinked, so that means she has to be with Paul forever. Paul does not even love Princess Irulan. They are married only by title. His true love will always be Chani. That's why in the book he takes her as his concubine, just like his father Duke Leto when he married Lady Jessica. Additionally, another issue with the conclusion is how Paul overthrows the Emperor. Paul defeats the Emperor in a very passive-aggressive, simplistic way. Emperor Shaddam literally tells Paul that he helped the Baron to assassinate his father because of their shared interest in spice. Then he tells him that Leto was a weak man and that he needed to die for the greater good of the universe. Paul listens to this and he hardly even acknowledges it.
Your father was a weak man.
Maybe he internalized his feelings because he knew he had already won. Perhaps Shaddam was right after all. Without spice, the universe cannot survive because civilization depends on the spice for fuel. Anyways, in the book, Paul forces the Emperor to abdicate his throne, and he also forces him to pay for all expenses of the war, including reparations to all the Atreides and Fremen soldiers out of his personal treasury for all the suffering he inflicted upon them. That sounds like a very assertive and caring thing to do. That's how a true Messiah should act. It is a shame that Villeneuve did not include this in the movie. Another aspect I thought could have been done better is the reveal that Paul and Jessica are Harkonnen. Lady Jessica tells him that she was Vladimir's unofficial daughter, so that makes the Baron Paul's maternal grandfather. This is an amazing reveal and makes Paul and Jessica even more intriguing than they already are. However, I just wish we could have learned more about the origins of how this came to be. I wish it could have breathed a little bit more. Before Paul is about to murder Vladimir and finally get vengeance for his father's demise, he addresses him as his grandfather. Such an ironic and Shakespearean moment. In Dune Part 1, it's established that the Baron's levitation abilities stem from the chimp implanted in his neck, but in the end this served as a clever plot device for the Baron's death. In the novel, 5-year-old Aaliyah murders the Baron rather than Paul. She dispatches him right in front of the Emperor and the Reverend Mother. She uses her psychic abilities to overload Vladimir's mind and then stabs him in the palm with a knife. Here's a quote from the book relating to this scene. "I'm sorry, grandfather," Aaliyah said. "You've met the Atreides, Jom Jabbar." She got to her feet. dropped the dark needle from her hand. The Baron fell back, his eyes bulged as he stared at a red slash on his left palm. You. He rolled sideways in his suspenders, a sagging mass of flesh supported inches off the floor with head lolling and mouth hanging open. Herbert, page 302. The last thing he sees with his own eyes is his own granddaughter ending his pitiful life. It's clear that Denis wanted to alter this segment to better fit the movie. Thematically, both scenes still represent offspring avenging their loved ones by murdering an evil family member. But it feels distinct when Paul does the deed, as opposed to Aaliyah committing it. So it is only fitting that he is the one who obtains vengeance. I wish Denis would have made it where Paul had a battle with the Baron, just to serve as a kind of precursor to Paul's final duel with Fade. Earlier I said that this film moves at a fast pace. This does not damage the story, but sometimes certain scenes like the Baron's death, the reveal that Paul is a Harkonnen, and the bonding relationship between Paul and Chani are affected. I understand that Denis had a limited runtime, but this was still worth mentioning. It was a long movie, but personally, if it were 3 hours or longer, I would have happily sat in the theater with no complaints. I'm sure plenty others were too. Another minor complaint was baby Aaliyah. I know she has a unique role in the story, as she is a very powerful, important character within the Dune mythos, but when the camera shows her in her mother's womb, it looked kind of funny. I liked how Denis wanted Aaliyah to be able to telepathically communicate with her mom, even in the womb, but sometimes it was hard to suspend my disbelief. Aaliyah is considered an abomination by the Bene Gesserit order because she was exposed to the water of life as a fetus, which would disrupt her powers and weaken her soul's equilibrium. Her psyche's vulnerability to malevolent spiritual forces will be critical to Dune Messiah. Aaliyah's debut in this film was interesting, but was hampered by some unintentional inconsistencies. I look forward to seeing what else Anya Taylor-Joy can add to the role.
Don't worry. I'm with you.
One last complaint is the visualization of Paul's Kwisatz Haderach abilities. His unique power to see the past, present, and future yields itself to amazing cinematic possibilities, but I feel that the film did not take full advantage of this.
All at once, our enemies are all around us.
In the movie, the only time Paul sees into the future is in his nightmares, and when he sees Aaliyah as a grown-up in his vision. It would have been nice to see Paul have a glimpse of the jihad on a planetary scale instead of just seeing a couple of corpses being incinerated in the sand. It would have been wonderful to hear him read Chani or other Fremen's thoughts in real time rather than just being implied through dialogue. It would have been nice to have all the characters whose bodies were mutated by the spice have blue eyes. The reason why the Fremen's eyes are so blue is because Frank Herbert was inspired by psilocybin's brown color, which turns blue when it is synthesized. Furthermore, blue represents the color of not just water, but it is also one of the most spiritual colors of them all, aside from white. I felt that Paul, Lady Jessica, and Chani's eyes were not blue enough. In the first film, Paul and Chani's eyes aren't glowing blue for long, but in a scene or two, you can clearly see their eyes illuminating beautiful color. Even in Dune 84, the character's eyes glow almost throughout the whole movie, so this film had no excuse. This is just a small critique, but I'm sure you will agree. In conclusion, Dune Part 2 is a nearly perfect adaptation of Frank Herbert's work. It honors the legendary writer's book while also changing some dialogue and scenarios to keep things interesting. Unfortunately, some of these crucial changes end up weakening the plot as a whole, as they oppose Frank's original vision for Dune. I understand that Denis wanted to make some changes to make the novel more his own. Sometimes alterations aren't necessary. Regardless, I would say that this is still the best live-action adaptation of Dune ever made. I cannot wait to see what fascinating things Villeneuve will do for Dune Messiah. Thank you all very much for watching this special video. I know it was long, but I hope it was insightful and that you enjoyed it. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Hope to see you guys again in the next video.